Okay, good evening, everyone. It's February 10th, 5 o'clock. It's time to call the meeting of the Fall River Housing Authority Board of Commissioners to order. Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Aguirre.
Here.
Vice Chairman Underhill.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Sahadi.
Here.
Commissioner Tache is absent.
Attorney Souza, would you read the statement for the open meeting law, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The language for the open meeting law is as follows. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. At the beginning of each meeting, we allow time for citizens' input, which is a maximum of 3 minutes per person. So if there's anyone here that wants to use citizens' input time to address the board for anything that pertains to the Housing Authority? Don't see anyone. We'll move on. The next item on our agenda, before we begin with the original agenda, is residents' concerns. Mr. Gagnon, do you have anything?
We have a couple of items, and not really concerns. As you know, we keep trying to get new membership in our organization.
Okay.
To do that, to that purpose, June month of March, we're holding an election at Olivera Apartments as well as Holmes Apartments, so we can generate some interest there. And we're looking to put some flyers up in some of the family developments, with hopefully, you know, with the chance that somebody will be interested.
Okay.
And
Anyone?
David was approached recently to have Carol Fiola to come in and do her coffee hour in our office, and we're proud to announce we will be doing one in March. And
Okay.
meeting in March meeting, we'll let you know when it is and the times.
Thank you. Commissioner Underhill, as the tenants representative, do you have anything?
No,
Nothing.
Everything's fine.
Okay, we will move on. First item on the agenda, is there a motion to accept the minutes of our annual meeting, which was held on January 13th?
So moved.
Motion was made?
Second.
And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Bills of communication, vouchers, which we have in the packet. Is there a motion to accept the vouchers?
Motion to accept. Second.
Motion made and second. Any questions or discussion about the vouchers? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Report of the Secretary on the management reports, which include applications, occupancy report, tenants' accounts receivable, work order reports, the monthly Section 8 voucher activity report, and the personnel count. Mr. Barrows, do you have anything with regard to these reports that you'd like to share with the board?
Yes, I want to just point out on the applications, we currently have 1,300 families on the wait list and over 500 elderlies, individuals on the wait list. So the demand for our housing continues. We have a very high occupancy rate. And if I may defer, I'd like the Director of Operations, Kathy Polvar, maybe to expand on the occupancy.
Sure. Do you guys have any specific questions about our occupancy rate, or want me to go over generally?
Just generally, briefly, whatever you have to share, you think the board might be interested.
Your occupancy rate is basically something, a number that you want to keep high, right? The performance standard is 97%. Anything below that is actually considered failing, so are low performing. So we're happy to report that our occupancy rate has actually climbed 3 whole percentage points, our average annual occupancy over the past 3 years. So we went from 94% just 2.5 years ago, a steady 94%, to what's now being incrementally climbing over 97. We've been holding our average for the fiscal year of 2020, our average occupancy rate right now stands at 97%, which is great, that's passing. But as of like the last 2 months, it's been 98% solid, at least 98.1, 98.2. So that's really good. And that we can attribute to the turning over of units in a much more fast way. We have a lot of changes that we've made to our procedures and our policies for unit turnaround, collaborating with the director of facilities and working with staff, and implementing an entire new model for unit turnover, which was launched last summer, I want to say. That's when we really started to see the numbers ticking up. So it's really nice to see units, the average turnaround time going from an average of 200 days to, well, it's down below, it's around 100 right now, which sounds really high, but you have to take into account we had a lot of units that were just long-term vacancies that kind of factor into that average. But I can foresee that in FY 2021, which is starting very soon, and going forward, we're going to have very low turnaround times. It'll be really nice to compare the before and after going forward. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm talking about speaking really specifically to our federal programs, which is the lion's share of our units. We're having some challenges right now with occupancy on the Maple Gardens and on development, because a lot of those units are currently covered by waivers for a vacancy reduction effort and a lot of modernization efforts that are going on. But thankfully we're not going to be penalized for those units being vacant for so long, because DHCD is approving waivers to keep them offline until they're ready for occupancy, and they require a lot of remediation. But yeah, so that's in a nutshell where we are.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, I think that's probably good. I think at next meeting, I'll select a few other reports, if there's no
Okay.
questions, just to expand on.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions or any discussion about any of these 6 reports? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept all 6 reports?
Motion to accept all 6 reports.
Motion made,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Financial reports, which include the monthly financial report, state quarterly operating statements for the quarter ending 12/31/19, and the state quarterly modernization report for the quarter ending 12/31/19.
If there's any questions, I'd like, if not, I'd like the finance director maybe to give her an overview of the reports, if you might, Melissa?
Yeah. So the results of operations through December of 19 report a surplus of just over $1 million. I just would like to note there's a couple of things that happened in December. The first being that we did record the retro salary increase for the Unit A negotiations that were approved, so that is included in these numbers. And we will start to see some of this surplus erode as we continue over the remainder of the year with increased utility bills and utility costs. Outside of that, there isn't anything unusual to report. I will talk a little bit about the deficit at the state program when we look at the next report, which is the DHCD operating. Essentially, this is quarterly reporting that we do to DHCD that looks at our MRVP and our 689 program as well as our state program. 689 and MRVP don't have anything unusual. The 400 program consists of Maple Gardens, Corky Row, and the Bishop Eade properties. And again, as you can see in the operations, we're running a deficit of just over $100,000, and that's essentially a maintenance issue where we've had some extraordinary maintenance issues that Kathy referred to, and I'm sure you've heard Kevin talk about with our vacancy reduction plans. In any case, we were funding a lot of that maintenance through operations, which was driving that deficit up. But as we saw in our last meeting, DHCD has awarded us some capital funding to go ahead and take that burden off the operations. So we should see that number sort of flatten out. And then the last report is just on modernization. This is quarterly reporting again that we do to DHCD on modernization spending. For year to date, we were running In dollars spent of $2 million on the second page there, you can see in column 4. $2 million of a budget of 2.6 has been spent, and you will see the remainder of those funds being reported in the next quarter as we round out the year.
And if I just may elaborate, the remaining $600,000 is, most of it's all attributable to Maple Gardens, vacancy reduction and underground utilities. So we are expending a significant effort at that site.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for either Melissa or Tim? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the financial reports?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Update to the board from our executive director.
Just a couple things. I did prepare a report that's in the package. Some of the items are explanations or some introductions to items later in the agenda that the board will be acting on. One item I wanted to mention is the Dartmouth Corrections Department was recently up at Baresi Apartments painting. It's a program that we got into several years ago. They've painted Cardinal Madeiras once or twice. So this year we looked at some of the high rises and tried to figure out which ones were more in need of painting. So it was decided to do Baresi. I think they've just finished up or very close to it. They had 5 inmates on the work release program, which are supervised continuously. And from my understanding, they washed all the walls, do all the painting, so it's all the common areas. They don't go into the units, but it's a great effort where we don't have to spend the resources on that program. Naomi Carney is the director of the program, so kudos to her for helping us out. And we are taking a look at if we have any other high rises, and possibly, I've heard maybe Olivera Apartments may be a place where we want to go to next. One other thing we did this month is the mayor has several transition teams, you may know. The transition team on health and safety requested that we attend one of their meetings just to provide some input about safety and security of Fall River housing. So Kathleen Povar and Mike Souza attended on our behalf, covering the security patrols we provide, the security cameras, how our wait list is managed, as well as occupancy and how guests are monitored, if you will. So I believe they spent about an hour and a half there. From what I understand, it was very helpful to that committee. So I was glad we could help out on that front. And then just the last item I want to mention is we have historically in the Section 8 department had a problem with effective communication. We have had a lot of inefficiencies. We're not operating at an optimum level. So I've looked, and this is a historic problem. It goes back at least since I've been here 10, 11 years. So it's nothing that has crept up. It's just been an organization, I think, that just hasn't functioned well. And I think it's mainly attributable to it's a very vertical type structure where from the clerk up to any managers or special programs person reports up to the executive director. So what I want to do is flatten the hierarchy, make it a little more horizontal by creating 2 divisions. I looked at all the functions of the department. I'd like to separate into a leasing function and then a service function, if you will, service division, which supports the leasing division in terms of inspections, in terms of getting applicants off the wait list, qualified for housing. We have an FSS program too. We have port in, port out functions. So there's a lot of activity in the department. I think just the fact that it's always been very linear has ended to a lot of maybe confusion in the job responsibilities and efficiencies in the reporting and monitoring. So I think with this more of a horizontal structure, there's going to be more interdepartmental collaboration between the units. There'll be more oversight of those divisions so they can focus on the activities of that division and make it operate more effectively, and increase the communication, present opportunities within the department for advancement, because it is a separate program than our public housing. It's, right now, there's just not much opportunity for movement vertically, so this will open up some opportunities there as well. So what I hope to do, and I've been working with the director on this for the last 2 weeks, and she's fully supportive of it. We've had some preliminary discussions with the union on it, the very preliminary, so we'll be presenting a finalized plan, but essentially for each division I would have an assistant director, and they would report to the director. So one would be a leasing director, if you will, assistant director, one would be a service division leasing director. So we hope to have those position descriptions done. I've been working with Mr. Burke, the personnel director, on those, as well as Ms. Ferriers. So we hope to have those positions next board meeting for approval, and then roll out this plan. And coincidentally, there is a position on here later where we want to increase some of the support for the different functions within the Section 8 department, and it's going to lend support to the leasing, the inspections, as well as the current lease-up, if you will, applications. So if there's any other questions about the report, I'd be happy to
Thank you, Mr. Barrows.
clarify it.
Did you say we were understaffed with the Section 8 program?
I don't know if it's really understaffed. There's a lot of work there, and a lot more could be accomplished. So I think by adding this position, we're going to be able to get the inspections done timely. We have one person now responsible for managing, coordinating inspections of 2,100 units. We used to have 4 inspectors in that department, so now we contract out all the inspections. So I want to provide assistance there. In the lease-up department, in the last month, we selected 100 names off the applicant list, and only 12 qualified. So you have to go through all those names. And so there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. And what happens is we lose about 10 to 15 vouchers a month over terminations, forfeitures, and if we only gain 10 or 12, then we're losing that, which, as you saw from the wait list, there's plenty of need out there. So we do have sufficient reserves in that program that could handle the support staff that we'll be proposing later on.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Commissioner Sahadi?
yes, through the chair. Number 2 says you held 2 interviews with regard to the position for a deputy executive director. How did that go? Where are we at?
They were two separate individuals. One is on hold for now, and the other one was still looking into as far as researching some background. But it is progressing.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to accept our executive director's report?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. New business, modernization. The Director of Modernization monthly report. Mr. Anderson, do you have anything?
How are you doing this evening? We've got several projects that are ongoing throughout the authority. One is over at Maple Gardens. We're completing the vacancy reduction on the kitchen and flooring renovations. The flooring is about 80% complete, and the kitchen cabinets are scheduled to arrive. We're anticipating completing 12 units sometime around the 1st of April. Another project we have that's in process right now is the laundry room conversion at Sunset Hills. This project is about 70% complete. We're anticipating completion of this project around April 15th of this year. We have 2 other projects that are just starting. One is going to be the AC requirements in the community hall at Madeira's Towers, and the other one is the elevator upgrades. Both of those have been awarded. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me. The AC in the community hall has been awarded, and we're working on submittals The second one, the elevator upgrade, we anticipated an award date of the 19th, but because there were so many questions in the walkthrough from the general contractors, the architect recommended that we postpone the award date until the 26th of February. So we'll be anticipating getting those documents then. The other item that we worked on this month is we've been working on a physical needs assessment, engineering request for engineers. We went through a blind evaluation with the management team. We have a recommendation to award this to the EMG Corporation. It was $79,248. We felt that this was the best organization that was presented of the four. Although it was not the low bidder, we felt that the low bidder that was in the packet had several issues that we were concerned with from a management standpoint. The only other item I have is we were awarded a $50,000 grant for Health and Safety Award. And that's going to be going to Maple Gardens also for common areas. So.
Those last items will be addressed later
Yes.
in the agenda.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Just so you won't feel left out, Mr. Anderson, it doesn't say accept here, but we're going to make a motion. Is there a motion to accept the modernization monthly report?
Motion accepted.
Motion made.
Second.
Second, all in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Item B, change order number 1 for laundry room conversion at Sunset Hill. Change order number 1 is an increase of $1,361.38 for 2 items, which we have the breakdown of.
Move to accept.
Motion made.
Second.
Second, any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Certificate of substantial completion for underground electrical services, Phase 2 at Maple Gardens. The recommendation is approval upon final approval by DHCD.
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Just, if I might add, for those people who may be watching, I know we all know what DHCD means, but there are some people I meet now and then. What does this mean? What does that mean? DHCD, those letters stand for Department of Housing and Community Development. It's the state's version of HUD, which is the Federal Housing and Urban Development Program. So DHCD is the one that supervises our state sites. So you're going to hear DHCD several times tonight. That's the state program that we deal with. Certificate of final completion for underground electrical service at Maple Gardens. Recommendation, approval upon final approval from DHCD.
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Contract award for basement upgrades. This is for cleanouts at Maple Gardens. It's recommended that we award a contract to the low bidder, Latuka Estate Services, in an amount of $42,250.
Question to Mr. Barrows. What
Commissioner
exactly are they
Williams?
cleaning out?
These are abandoned properties from former tenants, and in some cases, current tenants, which we've obtained waivers from. And that's so we can do work in the basement, which is part of this large award to make the basements a little more water-free.
You know, we can run into some apartments with some quite a bit of leftover stuff in it. So I'm assuming that's what the basement's
Yes,
about.
yeah.
I haven't been at Maple Gardens
Okay.
in one of those apartments in a little bit, so I'm assuming that's where I assume it to be. It's kind of people moving out, leaving their stuff.
Yeah,
behind.
yeah. I think it works out to about 2 basements per day, and they should be done in, was it about 4 weeks, Kevin, 5 weeks?
35 calendar days they have.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to award the contract?
Motion to award the contract.
Motion made
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. For information only, and Mr. Anderson, I believe, just alluded to this, award of $50,000 to the Fall River Housing Authority by DHCD's Health and Safety Fiscal Year 2020 Award Program. And I believe you said it was going to be used at Maple Gardens.
Yes, it is.
Correct? Amendment number 9 to the Capital Improvement Plan 5001. This amendment is an amount of $569,202 is for the formula funding award for fiscal year 2023 and the Public Housing Emergency Reserve.
Mr. Chairman, would you like the Facilities Director to
Yes.
expand on that? Kevin, if you would.
Sure, good evening. What that is, the state has given us an additional $150,000 to cover the soft costs for the basement upgrades. The clean out is your phase 1 of the project, and then phase 2 will be the removal of the wood partitions, the sealing of the foundation cracks, the basement windows, which is quite costly. So they've agreed to give us an extra $150,000 to cover designer fees, engineering fees, and that's what that is.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion made
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Fiscal needs assessment. It's recommended that we award a contract to EMG Corporation in the amount of $79,248.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, also, just as some background to this is an assessment of all our federal properties. So what it's going to do is give the Facilities Department an understanding of what the capital needs are at each site and the dollar cost to correct those needs. And it aids in the planning of the capital fund every year. So HUD requires this to be done every 5 years. We also may be looking into some financing for some of the elevator work through the capital fund program, which requires a physical need of all the sites, even though the work would be limited currently to Cardinal Madeiras. So that's the basic of what a physical needs is, and I'll let Mr. Anderson explain the award of the contract, or the recommendation for the award, I should say.
Yes, we went through an extensive review of their proposals, and as I said, it was blind. Each of us went off and did our own review of their contracts, and we identified EMG Corporation to be the best consultant of the 4 that were presented. Again, we did not have any financial data or anything like that to make those assumptions, and at the end of the day, it turned out that some of the requirements of the other contractors had third-party engineers coming in and doing a site review and things like that, and we felt that was not would not be successful for the Fall River Housing Authority. So,
Anyone have any questions? Is there a motion to award the contract?
Motion to award the contract.
Second.
Motion made
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Permission to advertise for bids for the following. Roof replacement, Phase 3 at Sunset Hill. Video security upgrades at Doolin Apartments. Roof replacement at Benny Costa Plaza. Basement upgrades at Maple Gardens. Vacancy reduction, Phase 3 at Maple Gardens. And common area improvements at Maple Gardens. Anyone have any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion made to
Second.
authorize bids Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Miscellaneous. Automatic laundry contract amendment. It's recommended action that we approve a no-cost amendment for the cash machines, 400 laundry cards, and 23 washer/dryers for the Sunset Hill Laundry Room, and approval of a 16-month extension to the current contract.
If I could have the procurement director expand on this? Tim, would you please?
Good evening, everybody. As everyone may remember, the last time we bid for laundry room services, there was no laundry room at Sunset Hill. So in lieu of what's been done there from a construction standpoint, I reached out to Automatic Laundry, who has the contract to operate the laundry rooms for the rest of our developments, and as you can see, it's a pretty significant investment on their part, because you roughly have about 23 pieces, granted many of us stacked, and I believe an ADA dryer, 400 gas cards, cash machine. When something like this happens mid-contract, whether it's public or private, Automatic usually asks for a 2-year extension to offset their investment. I told them that I wasn't comfortable with that because I wanted to stick to the 25% rule that we have as recommended by Mass General Law 30B, our procurement Bible for the goods and services side. So they were willing to reduce that number from 24 months. They were willing to reduce it 8 months to 16 months to get me at the 25% threshold. So in return, again, as the executive director mentioned, a no-cost amendment, but in return for their investment and to set up when we're ready to get up and running at Sunset Hill, they get an increase of 16 months, which means the contract, which is currently scheduled to run through August of 21, will essentially finish the 4 months of 21 and run through the entire calendar year of 22. Any questions, commissioners?
Is there a motion to approve the amendment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Item B, proposed change of monthly board meeting locations. It's recommended a resolution that the March meeting take place at Holmes Apartments. Tim, what's the rationale behind it?
Well, as background, our agency plan laid out several goals in it, which we submitted to HUD in January. And one of those goals is to increase resident participation, get involvement of more residents. So one thing we've done historically is had our board meetings here. So, you know, the thought was if we rotate the board meetings to an elderly site every other month, we can then engage the residents of that site into the board meetings. Because our bylaws state that the meetings are held here, it does require a resolution from the board to move it. So the game plan would be next month go to Holmes Apartments for the board meeting. In April, we would be back here. And that would give us enough time to possibly lay out the next 2 or 3 sites. So at the April board meeting, we could have a resolution for the following 6-month period, if you will. So we don't have to do this every meeting. But on the other hand, if we do come back every meeting and have the board do a resolution, it's kind of a good reminder that we are moving next month. So either way, you know, I think as long as everyone's agreed to the concept to do it, then we can minimize, you know, your time with the vote every month. But it'd be a good reminder.
So we would use the community rooms at the sites that we are going to move to.
Correct.
And just go ahead and give the residents there an opportunity to attend the meetings if they so desire.
Yes, and we'll post up notices in the specific buildings.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ahead, letting the residents know of the board meeting to take place.
I think it's a good idea. I appreciate the reasons behind it. So it's nice to get it back out there and let other people see, feel, and be around it. So
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
Motion to accept.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. The next one is a requirement by DHED, and I would just like to remind the commissioners that we are all required to sign this along with the executive director. So if you haven't signed it yet, please be sure to see Martha before you leave. It's a regulation by DHED certifying the Fall River Housing Authority compliance with all applicable state and federal lead-based paint notification laws for the fiscal year 2020. So Martha, you have those
All set,
papers
yep.
for anyone who hasn't signed
Yep,
it.
all done.
Thank you. Employee pension costs for the fiscal year 2021, $2,521,605. Mr. Barrows, do you have anything about that?
My only comment, I mean, it's a required payment, my only comment would be that it is an increase of 8.2% over the last year. And obviously, this is part of our employee compensation package. Well, we will be starting negotiations with the unions for a wage increase forthcoming April 1 of 2020. So it can't be held, but this will be part of the discussions. Melissa, the finance director, and I did talk with Periac last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they said for the foreseeable future, we're going to see increases of 7.5%. And you're probably facing the same thing,
I
Commissioner
am, so
Sahadi.
we have, and I can send it along the immunization schedule. Now, it will change a little bit each year because you're representing 7.19% of the total.
Right.
So that does change depending on what the population is.
Okay.
But the 7% increase is through the end of the immunization schedule. That will take us out to being fully funded. So you will be
Which is
seeing that.
20,
I believe it's 38.
38. Yes, yeah. So it's a while.
Any questions? Motion approved?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Open meeting law violation complaint. This is just for information. The complaints have been dismissed by the Attorney General's office, and Mr. Higgins withdrew his complaints. So those have been put to rest. Item F, Gateway Grant Application Submission to DHED. What is that all about?
This is a grant that we're funding, DHED has made available to gateway cities such as Fall River, New Bedford, Lawrence. We're eligible for up to $80,000 a unit. So the facilities department, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Spardella have been working with the grant writer to come up with this application, and the application proposes to complete all the underground utility work at Maple Gardens. That is extremely necessary. That is a potentially disaster on the horizon if something horrible happened, of an electrical means or gas means. We've had several years where we've lost services in the winter, have had to relocate several families. So the total grant application is going to be close to $1.2 million. It's going to take care of electrical services for 30 buildings. There's 120 families, gas at 18 buildings, which is 76 families. We have letters of support from State Senator Mike Rodericks, State Representative Fiola. We have a letter of support from Mayor Paul Coogan and Fire Chief John Lynch. We also have support letters from the Tenant Council. I guess I would like to give my thanks to the grant writer. He came via the graciousness of the city of Fall River So I think it's a very good application, but it is a competitive application, so nothing's guaranteed. But, you know, we'll go a long ways in bringing Maple Gardens up, you know, to the basic standards we expect to provide to our residents.
So if we get this grant, we'll be in the area from $1 million or slightly more.
Right, right.
Is it an all or nothing application? Do they give you a portion that you applied for?
They always could. You're right, they could. You know, because you can apply up to 80,000 a unit. So I think this averages out to $15,000 a unit, something in that magnitude. So, you know, we had to tie it in. The thing we had to do was tie it into other work being done by the city in the area. So the Community Development Department is going to be redoing the playground across from Maple Gardens, and that includes ADA access. So that was a big bonus. We have all the work going on the boulevard in front. It was very timely. The article in the paper came out saying, oh, 400,000. So, you know, I photocopied that, sent that to Brandon to throw in there. So they want you to tie in economic development by the city. So for that reason, it's competitive. But DHCD has been known to, as in this health and safety grant. Originally, it was awarded for $68,500. And then it was about 2 weeks ago they came back and said, well, it's going to be $50,000. But Martha was able to come up with the cuts to enable that to still be enough money to do it. So it is possible.
Thank you. Any other questions? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Nationwide Deferred Compensation Plan. Anyone have any questions?
If I may just explain this item first, Mr. Chairman. We have in addition to the state, we have a voluntary 457 deferred plan. The finance director reached out to Nationwide about some other benefits, and I'd like her to maybe present what this plan is and give us some information, answer any questions you have.
Sure. So essentially there have been a couple of changes with our provider based on code section changes. And so our plan was put in place prior to those changes, so we would actually need to formally approve these amendments, and that's why they're coming before you. There are two very simple changes. One is just an amendment to allow our participants to make Roth contributions versus deferred contributions, so it's pre-tax and post-tax differences. Essentially, this is something that we can very easily work out with our payroll provider, so that the payroll deductions are taken pre and post-tax. There would be no additional burden to the Affordable Housing Authority in terms of, you know, remitting those payroll deductions. We can continue to remit one lump sum payment and just indicate how that needs to be allocated between the two. And then the second change that we wanted to make was allowing participants to make a loan against their plan if the need arises. And again, you know, my questions to the provider were basically, you know, does that involve any additional burden for the housing authority? Realizing that it's a great option for employees to have made available to them. And I was able to confirm that no, it really doesn't pose an additional burden to us as well. The employees work directly with the provider if they need to make a loan, so they go direct to them, the funds get dispersed directly to their account, and the loan payment arrangements are made directly with the employee, and the loan repayment comes right out of their account as well. So the housing authority wouldn't have any involvement at all, so again, no further burden to us, but I think, you know, I've had a couple of employees show some interest in having these things available to them, so I think it really, I think, would enhance the benefit that we provide to the employees.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Resident stipend program. Tim?
Historically, we've had a resident here or there just wanting to help out around their site, mainly at the elderly high-rises, working in gardens, planting, just cleaning in general. So we started about a month ago with an individual requesting that at Mitchell Heights. So we said, sure, if you want to just help out, an hour to a day, that's fine. Just talk to the maintenance guy and he'll help you come up with what to do. And it's just a matter of picking papers, maybe washing floors. So in conjunction with the Joint Tenant Council, who had an interest in making it a formal program, we're proposing to make it a formal program, whereby, again, each site may have one individual who volunteers because they want to help out. There's a lot of satisfaction in working where you live. So it's a good mechanism for people to come forward and do that. We would remunerate them with a stipend of up to $200 depending on how long they worked. We do require a letter from their doctor saying they're physically fit and capable, although it is very menial type work, but we still want to have that assurance. And the Fall River Joint Tenant Council would help administer the program, so I think it's a win-win for the residents themselves, and then as well as for the authority maintenance, who will get a little bit of assistance, if you will. The stipends are not included in the determination of a tenant's rent, so no issue there. If they do receive more than $600 in a year, they will have to receive a 1099 for that, obviously. So, but we're going to let them all know that'll be in a kind of an application package that the Joint Tenant Council will share with them.
Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if there's any questions, myself, Mr. Gagnon, the Executive Director, we can...
Is there a limit on the number of tenants that can participate each month?
We do want to limit it to one per site.
Okay.
Because we don't want to become a burden either for, our maintenance staff, and we don't want people, it could get run amok, if you will. I think it's going to be valuable for us, but,
I think,
go ahead.
if I can, I think that some of the developments might not have anybody that are looking to, earn some extra money and help us. So I think we should look into the fact that if there are one or two other people at a big account, like at Cardinal or any of the other developments, that if more than one person is interested, that we should look into, letting two people work at that development.
Right. We do.
And I think one of the things is, like you were saying about picking papers and cleaning. As a resident myself, if another resident's there helping keep the place clean, it puts a little more pressure on the rest of us, because they're not afraid to speak up and say, hey, what are you doing? Pick up that piece of paper. And you don't expect the maintenance guy to say that to you.
Right.
But
Right.
a fellow resident, a friend of yours, or somebody that you see on a daily basis. So I think it's a good idea, and I think the more we can get to, more people we can get into it, helps.
Right, right, right.
So.
And I do want to, I do appreciate that. I do want to keep a handle on the costs we're going to spend, per year. And as well as just manage the program. So I think it would be good to start with one, but if there is a site that nobody wants to help out and there's a resident who just wants to help out, it is volunteer, if you will.
Right.
We don't want to get into wage labor laws and make it a formal, pay program, because it isn't. It's a stipend just because, we're appreciative of their volunteering to help us out. So maybe we can start out one per site, or if no one's there, put one in, but I would rather let it run for a while before we maybe got into several.
I agree.
Several people. But Dave actually had where we tried to start a program at Cardinal, where we call it an ambassador program.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Didn't work out that well. It went like a lead balloon.
Yeah. Do we provide? I don't think we provided a stipend though. Did
No, we didn't. No, I think that's a big get.
So that may
that's
help
the
out.
key.
And that was to help out with the traffic, from
Yeah.
Section 8.
Yeah, because it
And the
can
cars,
be a problem.
people parking and no parking. So I like that name too, ambassador.
Yeah.
That's pretty nifty.
A lot of people were interested in it until they found out it didn't pay a dime. They don't want to be an ambassador anymore.
the title.
So we do have the proposal here
Yeah.
for your approval, hopefully.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the resident stipend program?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Basements at Maple Gardens, recommended. Discontinue resident use of the basement areas for residents to vacate and, as current residents, recertify and enter into new annual lease agreements. So this means that as the people either vacate or their leases are renewed, they can no longer use the basements for storage.
Right. Would you like Attorney Souza to expand on this? He was involved in drafting the lease change.
So as you know, there are a lot of items on the board agenda this week just to for upgrades for Maple Gardens basements. So this is just a tweak of the board's August resolution, which wanted, I think what we were trying to say is any new tenancies that were going to be created at Maple would have no access to the basements. New tenancies also include the recertifications of current tenants. So when you enter a new lease, it's a new contract, it's a new day. So basically what that means is what's going to be in the lease, we've provided the new policy for no access to the basement for storage purposes. We've put a lease addendum together, which when the tenants sign, they're going to recertify and acknowledge that there's no use to the basement area. And there's also, I have to say, Kathleen and Deb Morissette have done a great job with Karen Costa, Melissa Souza, and Rebecca Pereira. They've been incredible. We drafted a waiver to have, well, first of all, let me back up. We drafted, Karen Costa did a questionnaire in October to see who was using the basements when this was all coming down the pipeline. She got a lot of residents to state that they weren't using the basements, but we needed, DHCD wanted to put a waiver, like a legal waiver to sign off their rights. So I drafted that. We currently have 118 tenants, heads of household that have signed the waivers. 43 tenants are in the process of being leased up for units that are being prepared for new tenancies. 2 of them are laundry units, and 4 of them are going to be transfers as requests for personal accommodations. We have approximately 196 units there. We have 161 units cleared. We are currently going into negotiation with 28 tenants because they still want to keep their storage. So I'm going to call them in and review alternative storage solutions with them. And there's technically right now 27 buildings that we have signed off with Kevin Spardello, who's also been doing a great job putting that stuff together as well. So I have it, everything has been broken down building by building. We're just making sure we cross off building by building. Basically that's it. So what this means is we're just including the new policy that we would like the board to adopt here to include new tenancies as well as research.
Any questions?
Yeah. There won't be any access to the basements once they will be locked, or?
The basements will be locked.
Okay.
Yeah, there won't be any access.
If a resident wants to keep their space for now until the time for their research, is their area separate from the other areas?
No, so we have, the majority of Maple Gardens buildings are 4 units per building. And each apartment has a storage area in the basement. Kevin would be able to tell you the dimensions, but whatever those are, we have to move them out in order to do the work. So all of those have to be cleared.
Okay.
The 28 tenants that want to keep their storage units, we're going to sit down and negotiate an alternative storage solution, which means moving that out to another place. Okay.
Yep.
So they won't lose that.
Okay.
We've already had discussions with DHCD who wants that to happen as well.
But the storage will only last until they're up for recertification.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there is a fixed time period, a fixed amount of money will be into this for.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to adopt the policy?
Motion to adopt policy.
Motion made,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Personnel. Temporary assistant property manager position, recommended we ratify the appointment of Allison Fagan. Is there a motion to ratify the appointment?
Motion to ratify the appointment.
Second.
Motion made and second. Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Clerk interview of positions. Recommended that we ratify the appointment of Vanessa Cooper and Justice Crevier. Motion to ratify, is there a motion to ratify the appointments?
Motion to ratify.
Motion made,
Second.
second. Ms. Gallagher, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Maintenance custodian Florida position. Recommended that we ratify the appointment of Keith Betancourt.
Motion to ratify.
Second.
Motion made, second. Gallagher, roll call.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Temporary maintenance mechanic, 1 floater, second shift. It's recommended that we ratify the appointment of Drew Dyson.
Motion to ratify.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. Gallagher?
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Police housing support assistant position. It's recommended that we approve the job description and grant permission to post in-house and on our website.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
This is the item I referred to when I was explaining my board report that will be providing support for the Section 8 department in various roles. The Personnel Director can add some information on this or address any questions. Tim, would you like to give an overview of the position?
Yeah, just, you went over it in your executive director's report, and speaking with the director of lease housing, there was a bottleneck in the application process and the selection process, and also in the inspection process, where we only have 1 employee now handling all the contracted inspections. Another duty in the description too that would assist in the collections and the reporting of collections. So, as Tim mentioned, there is money in the budget, and it will create some efficiencies in that department. So, if anyone has any other questions.
Any questions?
Not specific to this, but wasn't there gonna be 2 assistants?
Okay, that will be the assistant directors, yes. This is a clerical support.
Okay.
Okay, so those positions I've been working on, hopefully will, well,
Okay.
I will have them done before the next meeting and share them with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? There a motion to approve the job description and advertise?
Motion to approve.
Motion made,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. The next 2 items, item F and item G. The first item, item F, is a proposed agreement between the Florida Housing Authority and American Federation of State County Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1990, Unit A. It's for a 3-year contract, 4/1/19 to 3/31/22, including the 2.25% wage increase retroactive to April 1st of 2019. The second one is a step 3 grievance. I would like the board's approval to go into executive session to discuss these 2 items, but Attorney Souza can go into executive session and vote one time, discuss the first item, discuss second item,
Yes, we could.
come back into regular session.
At the board's discretion, yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Would you read the law then
Sure.
pertaining to executive sessions?
The recommended action to go into executive session would be as follows. The anticipated executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares.
I've determined that these discussion in open session could have a detrimental effect on the Florida Housing Authority. So, is there a motion to go into executive session for item F and item G?
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion made?
Second.
Second. Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Okay, so we'll go into executive session first for item F. Okay, is there a motion to go back into regular session?
Motion to go back into regular session.
Motion made?
Second.
Ms. Gallagher, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi? Yes. Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. During executive session, we discussed the items relating to the contract. Is there a motion to accept the terms of the contract as they were presented?
Motion to accept.
Motion made?
Second.
Second? Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. And the last item on our agenda this evening is a proposed agreement between the Fall River Housing Authority and grant employees. It's recommended that we approve a 2.25% wage increase retroactive to April 1st, 2019.
So moved.
Motion made?
Second.
Second? Gallagher, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Sahadi?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Any other business to come before the Housing Authority Board this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor, all opposed?
Aye.
So voted.